everybody. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. By now, you should already know us. It's me, Meghma, aka Ego Alchemist, and that's Kira FARR, Emerging Souls Oracle. And we are again here
Hi.
today to share our magic, our light, and specifically today we are going to talk about light workers. Like this activity, this program that we are doing together to come together every week and talk about our journey, different nuances to it, with the intention that people who are listening to us, they and if they are on the same journey, this can help them find some clarity, some support, and some maybe some next steps for them as well. And this we called it Sharing My Light, and it's an initiation program for closeted light workers. So it says light workers in our description as well. So today we decided it's time to talk about and debunk some myths and misconceptions about what light workers are. And when a person goes through this transition, bless you, Kira. She is just recovering from COVID with a smile as always. So bless her heart. And yeah, she's recovering good. So I'm happy for that. So yeah, anyway, so I was talking about the light workers, like what it means to me. And when a person goes through that transition from being stuck in the old matrix and realizing, okay, I fall into this category of a light worker, and what does that mean to me? It can be a extremely polarizing experience because it is opposite of everything that you have been told to be by the society and matrix. It's so raw, so vulnerable, so authentic. Whereas growing up, you hear anything else than the encouragement to be yourself 100% and speak your truth and be curious and talk about certain things that people consider as taboo or even irrelevant sometimes. So when I think about the word light workers, what I picture and the whole narrative kind of forms in my head. So I'll try and paint a picture for you, and if you see, if you can follow it and understand what I'm trying to portray. So imagine there is this grid of dark energy. So there is a very dark grid of connecting webs together, and all these webs are also kind of interconnected and knotted in the center. So there is a kind of a center which is dense, which is dark, and people who are familiar with Lord of the Rings, I would compare this center as the Eye of Sauron. And it might even appear to this grid. So on this grid there are also little dots, like millions and millions of them, dots on this grid that represent the people on this planet. And to many of these people, it might even appear that this center is giving them energy, power, sense of life, and instructions and stuff like that. But in reality, this center is actually drawing power from the collective to sustain itself, to perpetuate its rule, its tyrannical rule, because how it kind of consumes this energy from those million other dots on the grid is by keeping them in fear, under control, in ignorance about themselves and the quality of life that they deserve, and keeping them cut off from themselves, their heart, and therefore their connection to the life force energy that is abundant in this universe. Now, where does the light workers come in? Now, imagine these dark dots on that grid lighting up from inside, like it's turning brighter. And what's happening, this a person and a few people around the planet are being called from within to reject that grid of control, that mechanism of control and transactions and sucking energy out of each other, being competitive, being separated from another person, whether of skin color, race, and gender and stuff, and just go within and find that open that heart through love and find that connection to the source and sustain yourself. And these people, these first few dots to change from the dark, dim, dense energy to the lighter, brighter, and more sustaining, nourishing energy, to me, are the light workers. Basically, the first people to shift as the entire energy of the planet is shifting. And as these dots become more and more bright, and they began to connect to each other, the whole grid that was before tied to the center of control begins to change and becomes to integrated with each other. The center dissolves. There is no controlling authority or center. People are just connecting to themselves, their connection to the source, and providing each other whatever they are gaining from that source, and creating this really cohesive, coherent, and beautiful grid of energy around the planet. So right now we are at the point of time where not all of that grid is light, and we are not entirely detached from that central control and fear matrix, but we are well lit and we are talking about it. We are connecting more and more. For example, we doing this talks to talk about it and basically connect with other light workers is basically making that new grid, which we call the new earth grid, stronger and brighter. Now, this might even sound like a whole science fiction plot, right? Like these are kind of the movies I grew up watching, honestly, before I was aware of any of this. And every time it seems super cool. But now that I'm living this reality, it is anything but cool, because the whole story and how it's going is beautiful, is magnificent, and so much hope and love is there. But when you're zoomed down to your day-to-day life, it's very, very difficult. And these light workers are not some other like Yoda people. Not all of them are like that they have been hermit for 15 years and have gained huge spiritual enlightenment like Buddha. Or it's not like that during this time and space, right? I'm getting so excited. But but these people are normal human beings, like their mothers. They work somewhere, they have a family, they have their own problems, they have their own traumas they're dealing with, and trying their best every day, basically. But what's extraordinary about these people is that they are very sensitive to this world. Like one common thing that I find among the Lightworker collective, they have been always very sensitive, and so sensitive that many of them may have closed themselves off the world because they couldn't just take it any more, the dissonance that we live in. And because the world around it didn't even like accept them for who they were, and they had to mask a lot of traits. Many of the Lightworker community and people who are participating in this shift relate to some box of neurodivergence. And we all know if you fall into that spectrum, no matter where you are, you get a message from the society that you have failed as a human. And that's so hurtful that we try to mask and cover everything that makes us that. But these sensitivities are not just feeling big reactions, emotional reactions to rejections, or having sensory issues like light, sound, or people that gets you agitated, right? These sensory sensitivities are now catching up, and we have the sensitivities to kind of sense and perceive the energetic shift that is going on the planet, and we're picking it up, and it is becoming more and more difficult to mask those sensitivities. And it's all good. And these sensitivities are not yet, like I was saying, it is not contained in just sensory issues and stuff. It's really converting into spiritual gifts, and we are beginning to hear, see, know, and understand things that people around us are not. And our first reaction to that is, I'm going crazy, and I have finally cracked under the pressure of this lunatic society, and I have lost it, and I'm living in this fantasy world in my head where we have superpowers to fix everything. So that was at least my first reaction. and and it's a long road from being there to being on a public platform and saying, okay, I'm a light worker and there are others out there and we are doing this huge work together. And how does that feel to battle with yourself and convincing yourself, okay, you're a part of this? And I'll let Kira really talk about that because it's something recently that she has dealt with.
Yeah, it's a difficult battle. For me specifically, I have a lot of sensitivity. I've always been very sensitive, and I've always been someone who sort of plays between and within the realms of darkness and light within myself. Um, so I have been able to explore so much chaos and darkness that's within me and be very sensitive to that, and also the light within me, and bringing them to balance is very difficult and stressful. And I did feel for a long time that I was completely like insane, like nothing that I believed in was real or that it was right. It didn't make sense. But I came to realize that it's very much valid to believe in something like energy and a different realm and different levels of energy and different vibrations and frequencies. And um, it's but it's unseen, it's felt. And because people are, like you said, very closed off and not as sensitive to it, they don't experience anything past what they can physically see and hear and touch and everything like that. And I think it's a great gift to be able to sense um, the layers, because there's so many layers. There's Earth as a planet and just like the biology of it and the science of it and the physical stuff. And then there's all of these layers that I don't even know how many layers there are. But to be able to feel that and to be sensitive to that, um, it's a gift to have it, but it's hard to navigate. Um, so yeah, it's a battle to accept yourself. And a lot of the times I've found that I try to get myself to go back and just try to sort of be normal, knowing that that's never going to happen, because once you're in, you're in. Like there ain't no going back. Like it's like you fall down the rabbit hole, you're in Wonderland forever, basically. um it's and it kind of is like that, like you slip into this alternate world that everything is different, like perspectives shift, everything feels different. It's a little scary because you're dabbling in like other people's energy, your energy. Like everything feels different. um and ignorance is bliss, like that's a saying for a reason. It's like people blissfully go about their lives not knowing or worrying too much about the energy they put out. But yeah, it's like a whole different world. And um navigating that is, I'm trying to think of how to word it. It's like it's it's a roller coaster. For one, it's sort of like up and down, like you get new information and this comes in and that comes in. And there are different levels to discovery. It's kind of like, it literally sounds like insanity, but it's so real to like feel that energy and to experience those things and to see what you see. And um the world of being a light worker is very vulnerable and very unique and very stressful. But I feel like we have a natural tendency towards authenticity, and sensitivity and connection that people who are very closed off don't have. A lot of people who are neurodivergent rely more on honesty and not all these layers that cover over the truth. They rely more on that authenticity and that connection to like self, and seeing what is there versus what's like covered in social norms and what you should say, how you should act, what you should do. But yeah, I feel like a lot of us who are neurodivergent or a light worker or in this community in general, we don't live the same way. We're sensitive to energy, we're sensitive to this. We want to rebel against the system, but we have to do this like delicate dance of practicality and like working our 9 to 5 and living, because you can't do much light work when you're poor and you're stressed and you're struggling. So we have to kind of grab hold of that eye and also grab hold of the light, put them and sort of just be in the center of that. Like that's difficult, that doesn't feel very comfortable. And yeah, I sort of went on a whole thing there, like I don't even know what I'm talking about, but like it's so yeah, it's very, but I do feel like we're connected more than people who are asleep or people who have it closed off. We're connected on a deeper level than they have the capacity at this stage in their journey to be at, and they
Yeah,
will get there. But at this stage, it's very much their time to be asleep, in terms of like it's their time to be closed off to that, and it's our time to open up to that. And yeah, I think um it's, I like to also consider how many lives we've lived when we weren't light workers and we were just like them and we were closed off to that. There's that potential for them as well. You know, it's not like, oh, you're better than them, you're special, you've got this ability. It's like, yes, but also I was probably like in my previous life, for example, I was not doing the work. I was not doing the right thing. I was very much too busy rejecting connection and vulnerability and very much like just living my life trying to gain material stuff. Whereas in this life, it's the complete opposite. I feel like, to put it in simpler terms, we are sensitive. We want to help the planet. We want to help others. We want to help animals and plants. And we gravitate towards healing in a practical sense. And we gravitate towards rebelling against the old systems because we are wanting to make changes. And it can be incredibly frustrating to balance between those two worlds.
yeah, yeah. I remember you when you said that you feel like you are, in one part you are holding on to that eye of Sauron within the collective grid, the old matrix, the old world, and also on the other hand, you're grabbing onto the light and bringing in more, and it's like this continuous balancing act that we have to do. And yeah, so those little dots in this enormous grid that is lighting up and getting brighter, everyone in that is feeling that, because we are shifting the entire energy and transmuting, and all this, and transmutation is like an alchemical chemical process, right? And the energy shift from one form to other. And where does this happen? Inside our own vessels and bodies. We are the laboratory, and we are shifting our own consciousness and helping others to do that. And yes, there is this intense need and want to help others, and so heightened empathy for others, like you hate seeing others suffer, even if they are, you know, inflicting that pain upon themselves, and you want to free them. But kind of reminds me one of the lessons that as light workers we have to learn to understand when you are called to interfere and help in someone's journey, and when you are called to just observe their journey, learn, take it as a reminder for your own lesson and to your own inner work. It can be very tempting once you start to identify as a healer to go and try to heal everybody. And yeah.
I like to, when it comes to helping people, I like to ask them if they want a spiritual perspective or a practical sort of typical perspective, because I could go about all of these things saying like, hey, you know, we came down here to deal with the stuff we're dealing with, but that can translate to it's your fault.
Yeah.
That can, and so it's important to know that, because I find it helpful to think that I chose this and it makes me feel less like a victim and less powerless. It can actually make some entirely different person feel terrible. So I like to, before I ever kind of try and give any sort of advice or help with anything, or even just discussing topics, I like to tell people like, hey, this is what works for me, this is what I believe, but what you believe may be totally different, and that's authentic to you, and that's your story, and that's your way of living. And that facilitates like a safety network for them. And because of the fact that my mind is so open to literally everything, I can hear their perspective and then work with that anyway. Like I can work with that and find something to resonate within that. And I think that's a great gift. I feel like I'm like water. I can mold to any cup that I'm put in. So and sort of change from like the ocean to a river to spring water to like all different types of environments and different ways of living, because I do think that it's a delicate thing to be attempting to help people and to heal people. There's the biology of it, like what's going on inside your brain, versus like what's going on with your spirit and your soul, versus like, but then also how they work with it. For me, I work with it from a spiritual perspective, but someone else may work from it with it through, and it'd be very beneficial to them to see it from a scientific point of view so they can physically work with their brain. So when it comes to healing people, or wanting to help people, especially if you've been in their boat before, or you know what they're dealing with, it's, you got to be like delicate with how you go about it, because it's like a whole different person that you're working with.
Yeah, and when he said like you're like water and you kind of take the shape of any vessel or any water body that you flow into, but that just like I could hear with it that but the water itself doesn't change. So you should remember that about your that power, that ability to take shape and even kind of pick up some taste, some color from your surroundings, but itself you don't change, and that's your authenticity, and that's you, your soul and everything. So that's like pretty beautiful. And on that note where you said like some people want to work with the scientific part, and you and I are more esoteric, more spiritual. We like to talk about tarots and symbolism and stuff. And yes, for light workers, that is not you know, kind of uh, label, or what do we call it, like a category that you must fall into, because a light worker could be a politician who has nothing to do with tarot readings and stuff, but that politician as a human being. And I know this word is so triggering to us, like you hear politician and you go, we don't want them in our reality. But imagine people who politicians who are conscious, who know what they're doing, and they have an open heart, and they are doing it for the right reasons, and more of them in public places, who on community leaders and stuff, who do that. So and they don't have to do divination or stuff. They could be just a person who takes care of themselves, their mind, body and soul, their family, their community, and in whatever way they feel aligned to it. You could be a carpenter and just make beautiful furniture for people. So yeah, just wanted to add that to it.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point, because there are politicians out there who actually want to help the planet and help people and bring groups of people who have been pushed down by other politicians, bring them people up and support those people. And yeah, like light workers can be people who are out there trying to save planet Earth itself. And then there are people who work with as psychologists, people
Yes,
who work
correct.
as people who work at like cafes who just make everyone smile, you know, people who do like childcare and stuff like that, and bring something to those kids that is going to shape them for the rest of their lives. People who are teachers, like it's literally anyone on the planet can do this type of work. It's about bringing more of that light in than there is that darkness. And yeah, it's some people are on their own separate sort of journey, and that journey makes other people feel so inspired that they then start to heal themselves. And that person hasn't even done anything to that other person. They have affected them simply by being optimistic or healing or doing the inner work, and then just having that vibration ripple out, it affects the planet. And if one person out of like the 7+ billion people on the planet is capable of healing, then everyone else is capable of healing as well. And it's a whole beautiful thing. There are so many types of people. I know like TikTokers, for example. I love TikTok because I go on TikTok and my whole For You page is filled with people who make videos. Like there's this one guy who makes videos where he just makes tea for the audience, and he says, and he just talks to you, and he's like, I hope you're having a fantastic day. And he just makes everyone smile, and he's like a beautiful soul. And there are so many people like that who like, and then they just go off and they do their normal stuff. But those videos save people's lives. Those videos help people to smile when they have nothing to smile about, or they feel like they have nothing to smile about. And like content creators in general can do that. It's like a whole network of people doing all kinds of different stuff, and it just lights you up. And that's my biggest inspiration. Like if I could be someone who just makes someone happy for like 5 seconds in a day, then that's like all I need to do, you know? Like it's such a beautiful gift to be able to bring light into the world. And yes, it's a hard journey to do, because you have to know, there's a quote, it's like those who are capable of great love or great healing or something are also capable of great war, because we have faced monsters and we've slain those, worked with them sort of like to heal and transform them into what they really are, which is fear and pain, and brought that out and turned it into something beautiful. And it's like a whole process that occurs within one individual that then ripples out across the globe. And it's fantastic to think about.
Yeah, I wow, that you're such a beautiful soul, and the way you talk about this process is so real, it's so true, and it resonates so much. So thank you for that. Yeah, the other thing that we wanted to address is if you fall into this tightened niche of a light worker who is called to help people using your spiritual gifts or clairs. And that's another rocky road, and it was quite difficult for me because 10 years and more I spent in the corporate doing a normal 9 to 5 job and thinking life in that box, and never really thinking of not expelling, excelling at my spiritual gifts and working through them. And since I remember as a kid, I was intuitive. I had psychic dreams and I could rely on them and I could play with them because I didn't have those filters and those layers of conditioning of disconnecting with myself. So when and it was shocking for me that I am to help people when I realized my guides like repeatedly told me, and finally I had to accept that I am to help people through my clairs. And yes, to like how Kira is like water and can work with any perspective, and it's similar like that, like work with people's energies more directly and answer more haunting questions that they can't possibly sometimes talk about and stuff like that. It was a very difficult transition for me, and especially when I for inspiration looked in outside the world and there are people doing incredible things like past life regression, hypnosis, light language transmissions, big ritual circles and stuff. I felt inadequate, and that's something many people when they are stepping into bigger roles in the life, whether light worker or not, do feel. And yes, we feel that too, and it's insane, right? Like it's like moving on from a muggle world to a Hogwarts world, and everything is real, it's not a fantasy. And yeah, it's when Hagrid told Harry, "You are a wizard, Harry," and Harry was like, "No, I'm just Harry." So yeah, like if you're in that space, it's totally understandable. But the more you play with your gifts, and if you are called to do that, and this spiritual clairs, it's not reserved for light workers. It's just because we lean into that and we kind of explore that more and more, it comes online faster. It's the common human trait, and we are moving into a vibration era where common people will have these clairs and use their intuition and stuff in daily lives to make decisions and live their life.
Yeah, exactly. Like we all have the capacity to develop those gifts. I myself always used to think, oh, I really wish I was like psychic somehow, that would be really cool. And it was actually the other day, I stopped in the middle of what I was doing and I sort of laughed because I was like, I kind of sort of am a little bit. Like I'm sitting here getting these mental images of my future and snippets of information, and then like gut feelings and like messages from that I'm deciphering from a bunch of cards that some people look at and they're like, I don't know what that is. And like those are gifts that I can use. And I thought it was so hilarious that I've been sitting here going, I wish I had some sort of psychic powers, like some sort of psychic gift to work with. And I have this whole time.
Yeah.
And it's not just clairvoyance. Like you don't have to just be able to see a spirit in your room, for example. Like that's great and everything to be able to do that, but you can also sense their presence. You can sense their presence. You can hear. Some people are clairaudient. They hear people talking to them. They can feel clairsentience. They have that ability to feel when something is correct or feel when something's wrong. And then like, of course, intuition, like having that knowing or that intuitive nudge that says, hey, this is what you should do, or this isn't. And even working with crystals, like I worked with a piece of moldavite and I was like, okay, I have to travel. And then I lost the moldavite, and all of a sudden I was back in this world of, okay, now I got to study, I got to hustle. And that went downhill. Like I had to have like a tower moment lesson for that. But that crystal was encouraging me to do something that was right for me, that intuitively it was strengthening my connection to my intuition and to my truth. And when I lost it, I stopped having that sort of aid to help me work with that. And now I can sort of work with my intuition without crystals so much. But even working with crystals is something that anyone can do. Working with crystals can help you enhance those abilities, enhance those gifts, and that is something that we all have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, like, and even if you don't have access to many crystals, because that's like someone like me, okay, and I want to have many tarot decks, oracle decks, and a lot of crystals and stuff, but I don't have as many as them I like to have right now. But if you are in that space too, you don't have to go and buy a bunch of crystals. You can start study about your internal chakras and your energetic systems and start to work with them. You have incredible tools inside of you. Yeah, and we are kind of segueing into a new whole things about how light workers can step into this and start working. um, but yeah, I think we will do that on another day. But I hope today's message resonated with people who felt different, feels sensitive, knows that something else is going on and they are being called to a different path, and they have this intense want, desire to help the world, to help other people, and maybe you're opening up to this new possibilities about who you could be. So, and I hope today's discussion kind of helped you, have a more concrete, solid sense of what's going on around you and within you.